Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to the return of the Obra Dinn. In the last recording, we kind of heavily relied on guessing to fill in some of this stuff. You almost want this type of game to be set in a Skyrim-esque fantasy world, perhaps where there are just no humans, because you do inherently know that like anybody from England is probably white. Anybody from Formosa is Asian. Anyone from China is going to be Chinese. Um, and that pretty much is what is being said here is that the origin is not a description of the place they were born as if that would influence their culture or influence the way they speak or influence the way they dress or anything like that, really. There might be a little bit of that about in this game, but at the core of it, it is just I'm going to look at this person and I'm going to make a snap judgment assumption, for lack of a better term, racist judgment assumption on who is who. And if you were in a Skyrim world and instead of origins that you recognized and could make that assumptions, they could be fake fantasy worlds. Like it couldn't actually be Skyrim because if you said like Tamriel, you probably wouldn't know that Tamriel has certain types of elves or certain types of humans, and but the general idea is that anybody could be from anywhere, a very homogenous planet. Uh, of course, if you did make the game like that, then you don't have any visual clues at all that would help you, and that would be kind of self defeating um, because that's all this game is really giving you. And really, what it falls down to is, as we're going through the memories the second time, is that you get a lot of sound effects, uh, but not enough conversation to really give you enough hints. Hmm. Hmm. See, like the audio here gives you a slight hint as to who's talking, but only if you pay really close attention. Like at the very beginning, you hear somebody lighting a pipe, or what sounds like lighting a pipe. But that doesn't even help you because there's nobody in the picture that's actually lighting the pipe. So, yeah, even the auto effect that I thought was helpful uh, isn't very helpful. And we don't have to, I suppose, ever figure out what happened to the monkey. Alright. We know this guy died. We think this is a surgeon. Can we identify this person to make sure he's not the surgeon? Ah, yeah, we do know he is the surgeon's mate. But clearly, we think he's alive somewhere because he's the one that gave us the book. But we're just kind of brute forcing it. And I feel like there probably was a interesting. This guy doesn't seem to have died at all. Um, so he could be the fourth mate on top of being the third mate, or he could be several other people. He could be the fourth mate. He could be the third mate. The thing that we have to figure out is the fourth mate here. So we don't know how he died either. Let's see if we know who this guy was crushed by a terrible beast later. This guy is not a seaman. Not that seaman. And it really is just a matter of us naming different people to the positions of seamen. Over here is, so you have two peepholes on this side. Nothing you can see through this peephole. Nothing you can see from this peephole, and this white hallway is hiding things any further in that direction. Nobody in this area. Nobody in this area. Nobody in this area. Nobody in this area. Still feels like a very weird design for a ship. Then we know this guy died. And we know this guy died. And so there's some small bits that are slightly helpful, but not really a lot. There's a lot of opportunity here to go in circles. And let's see. I want to basically follow the map of the timelines. So the next death in chapter 2 is over here. I think there's also something to be said around the idea of having all of the facts brought to the current timeline instead of having to go back into memory. So somebody's helping the butcher. Charlie, somebody named Charlie, was helping the butcher. So we know this is Charlie vomiting here. And this is another one of those cases where the game itself probably wasn't interesting. Why is the butcher missing? Did we already identify the butcher? Well, then maybe that's the cook. Yeah. Or maybe this is the butcher. Yep, this is the butcher. So we don't have a clue who this is, actually. But I'm gonna say he's an unknown seaman. Which, at a certain level, it really should just be, let's just throw a name in there. And swap some seaman names out. It definitely feels like there is probably a logical solution. Is he a midshipman? If he's a midshipman, then that explains, we now know how midshipmen dress. They have coats and they have a scarf. Let's see. The question would be, is there any other Charlie character? I mean, he could also be the bosun's mate. I'm gonna put him as the bosun's mate, because bosun mates generally seem to indicate somebody who is relatively young, where a lot of the other sailors are more professional and older types. And then there's really no reason to investigate those two again, since we'd already seen that. And still don't know who that guy is, really. We do know who that guy is. This is the surgeon. The surgeon has the monkey. We really can't change anything until... That's the surgeon's mate. Okay. Yeah, we really can't change anything until we are, as far as whether or not he's alive in that specific area, until we get another match of 3. So this chapter doesn't seem like it holds enough facts alone to give us too much more information. So then the next step would be to look at murder. Murder part 1. Which, to find exactly what it is, it's easiest to look here on this map. Not loose cargo. We skipped loose cargo because I don't think there's enough information for that to be useful. Murder part 3 starts here on the main deck. Right? Which that puts that body way further away from where it should be. And we've got the rain because we can potentially finish the game now if we wanted to. I am here. And I want to be here. It's a lot of flipping between books where the use of even a back button would be fairly useful to bring up a map, or some D-pad options to bring up the photos in the group. So you have an English. Okay. Wish you could crouch down. But yeah, this guy's been knifed. And is this Senior Nichols? And we just don't know who this is. Yeah. Let's try this. This guy. Senior Nichols. Which doesn't even seem like it can be Senior Nichols. He was killed with a sword. No, he was knifed by him. Okay. So if we can figure out who that guy is, that's great. And we do know who that is. And This guy was bludgeoned. Interesting. He was bludgeoned, beaten, clubbed by Senior Nichols. Are we certain that that is the right name? And the glowy shell is nice that you can see it there, but it is kind of a red herring that they just tease and show you and doesn't actually play a major role in the story. Alright. So, he's definitely trying to rob the place. The mate is. So, he wouldn't be the bosun from Australia. He might be the gunner's mate. I kind of think he's more Italian, though. Do we have any Italian people left? Well, I bumped a button there that moved this page forward, but I did see an Italian person. Here you go. Nunzio Pasquale. Let's say he's Italian. Now, are we sure that he's been clubbed? I think we have to assume we are sure of that. Yeah, unfortunately, it's just not worth your effort to try and logically deduce all of this. Adding potentially 2 to 3, then maybe 10 more hours of gameplay trying to find the exact reason why something is the way. Okay, I understand. Mr. Wolf. Ready, men. Aim. Fire. So now on second viewing, you realize that this guy was beaten on the head, and so he wasn't murdered in the previous shot. Interesting. He was actually shot with a gun, and we are not sure who yet. This guy, his hand placement does seem like he had his hand up to go ready, aim, and then fire, which I think means this guy is Mr. Wolf. So, if we find somebody named Mr. Wolf, then we'll know at least what kind of job people with hats have. 3 more fates, correct. Got him. We got him. Yeah, so he was actually killed by the first mate. So there's a whole cheat, certainly, to this. And we know he's not in the Canary Islands, so we'll just move Henry Evans to Cape Verde. Now, if we know who this is, do we have a bunch of gunners? No. Are these a random assortment of different people from different levels, or are these all just seamen? Like, I think they're all just seamen. Is this the gunner's mate, then? I'm gonna say maybe with that hat. But honestly, these were probably... This is probably the gunner's mate. Okay. And a lot of these people, I think, are going to pretty much be dead in this scene in particular. See, unless this is the butcher's mate or the cook, which I'll put him as the cook. We still know him. And I think kind of obviously there's... We're done with all of these people, except for this guy and this guy, which are just seamen, which I don't think we'll be able to easily identify. See, Marcus Gibbs is the carpenter's mate. Let's see. Let's see if this is either Davy Jones. Let's guess that. Fourth mate. So that would be the fourth mate steward if we assume that much is true. This was a top man that was electrocuted. This is the wrong top man name. So we'll swatch that around. Yes. Could be the helmsman. So we'll just fill that in. Like, the captain is useful, but almost you almost certainly need like a toggle here that would help you adjust all of this and toggle some people off. See, this guy has a skirt on, and his shoes might be a little bit different. So that might mean something. He was the third mate steward, which makes him the third mate, I think. And he's the second mate, which should make this guy the second mate steward. Like, are we certain that this is the second mate? Yeah. So a decent amount of work could have been pulled from this one scene. There's no way downward into the bowels of the ship. Nope. but also a lot of those guesses clearly are wrong. Because if they were right, I would have made some progress. Now I need to go down to the first mate's room and scan in there for the final part of this sequence. And you really don't get a full cinematic experience here, where you could just watch the events of everything in a row. It seems like that would be nice if at the end of the game you were able to do something like that, but that's doesn't seem particularly doable. There we go. And see, at this point, there's... Yeah. At this point, Chapter 3 murder would have just been loose cargo, crushed somebody by accident, and then 2 people died of the bitter cold or just illness. And it's only in this chapter that the second mate shows himself to be kind of the bad guy. And that he was trying to, I think, trying to rob the Formosa royalty, which it feels like to me the Formosan royalty was trying to sneak off the ship completely after their protector guard had been killed, executed unfairly by the captain, but I think the captain was led astray. But it is seemingly quite a while after this incident where either the Formosans actually do get off and ashore, although maybe this is all just that same one sequence. Maybe this is all directly connected with the next chapter. Alright, well, who is this? That's a seaman, Patrick O'Hannigan. So anybody with a knot around their collar is probably a seaman. This is somebody, a topman, being shot by Edward Nichols again. So we now know, like, it is Nichols that's being shown as the bad guy. Let's see. And we know she died later. Are there anybody up in the rafters? That Samuel Peters is not the right seaman, so we'll just swap that around. See, this guy is clubbed at some other point, so we don't know if that's right or not as far as his name. This guy seems to have been speared. He didn't fall overboard, he was speared by... Again, I think it's pretty easy to just say everybody is being speared by or killed by the second mate. Which, like, at any point I could name this as like the pursuer. Just give him a name, even though we have no idea if he really is that. Sometimes you're too close. This guy must have not fell overboard to his death because I'm fairly certain he is the steward. This is another seaman. We've got him. This guy, we know what happened to him. He's not probably a top man. He's probably a seaman. Too. Does that guy look Indian? Probably not. So we'll just give another name. Is there any other things that will at least lead us to some guesses? Because that's really all we're struggling for here, is something that will lead us to a guess of some sort. Is take any seaman whatsoever and assume that he is one of the shooters and give it a guess. If we get it right, then we know who that person is. And so that would be chapter 3. So now we need to find chapter 4 on the map and chase that, which is chapter 4. This, yeah, chapter 4, part 1, the calling, is over here. Is this where the map is indicating that getting to chapter 1 works? No, that's the doom. So you go backwards in time in this one? There's actually no way to go forwards in time? See, I knew one of these chapters was not just linear. Part 6 of part 6. So there really is no way to watch the whole thing in a row. Alright. And we know that guy. Like, who is that guy's name? Chiotan shoots this guy, which we had done. And yeah, it kind of goes out of order because I scanned this guy and then we know who that is. And then it takes us back further. We know that she's dead. We see the seashell and nobody else pretty much. And what's kind of funny is the seashell is here, but at one point it was in here, so I don't know if maybe there's 2 seashells or what. But yeah, there's 2 bodies that can be scanned, and I don't feel like there could have been 2 bodies that could have been scanned before. So, like, it's not even showing me the fingerprints. So I don't know if it's not showing me the footprints, so I'm not sure if I should scan this guy back here, or if I should. That was a very different sound effect. That was a very, very different sound effect, but we've seen this before. That's weird. I don't know what to take from that, what that's supposed to have meant. That there was just a big, like, circling image. I mean, we still know this is the bad guy. Still know that that guy's dead. And see, as he was on fire, I guess maybe he put the seashell in the second boat. No, the seashell is there. And I guess you don't have to go through the whole loop if you don't want to. You could just walk out now. It really feels like there should be something more here. But there really doesn't seem to be something like that. And you can't zoom in on the mermaids, which almost makes you wonder if maybe the mermaids aren't dead. See how it's now this like bright light that's way different than the other scans. It'd be crazy if there was some kind of like secret to this game nobody ever found. I mean, this is getting to kind of a powerful revelation, and it is getting to a point where it's showing these people the power of whatever shells are in the inventory. And you can see that the mermaids, one of them does have a shell on top of this guy who has a shell in the drawer. And there's a paddle floating away. But yeah, there's a floating shell here, which does just kind of imply to me that there are many magical shells. And see, he's just hiding and curled up. And we know he was speared. He didn't fall overboard. He was been stabbed. He was knifed. So who knifed him? He probably it being Psy. Let's label that as that. Knifed by it being Psy, because it being Psy at the time would have been kidnapped. I mean, if he's not stabbed with a knife by that, then he was like that. That looks like a knife. That doesn't look like a spear, and it doesn't look like there really is a it doesn't look like there really is a person there. Was this guy speared not by a terrible beast, or is this a different seaman? Either one of those could be the case. And here you have another paddle floating off. Let's see. Then I guess it's take your pick. Do you want to see the death of this person, or do you want to see the death of this person? And that is going to take us in different directions. That's part 3, so I maybe missed part 4. O'Hagan. So this is not the second steward's mate. This is somebody named O'Hagan. Okay. We don't even have somebody labeled as O'Hagan. Is this O'Hagan? No. He's a seaman. And this is the guy. This is O'Hagan. And you can see he was knifed by this guy. So either this guy is not the second mate steward, or I don't have 3 answers. And I guess the easiest way to check this would be to see if he is perhaps the first mate steward or the 4th mate steward. Would make a lot of sense that he's the 2nd mate steward. We know he's one of those, so that really does go to show of all of my guesses, there seems to be kind of a considerable lack of correct answers. And that is going to be the problem, certainly, if you're brute forcing it, is that you will just have a lot that's wrong.
Aye, sir. Checked and loaded up myself. Good. Stay quiet and alert. If the wind picks up, we've no chance against the Obra Dinn. Shut it up. They say strange things about monsters.
So the Formosa people do seem to know about the monsters. And see here, they've intentionally made it look like it nearly stabbed that guy, but it didn't. And we know he's not that seaman, so let's see if he's Samuel Peters. We got that one right. Still uncertain about that one. We know who that is. The main bad guy. We know he's a seaman who fell overboard. We know he was spiked. See, the problem now, though, is I went the wrong direction. So there very possibly is something I missed. And like, while there are little shortcuts back to this point, we'll go ahead and skip that. Yeah. Then you have to get back, I guess, to this one. I wonder if the power increase you see here is possibly an indicator of of just how powerful the Formosan royalty were, or if they have vivid memories or their deaths are just more important. See, and that jumps you back to chapter 1. Hmm.
Aye, sir. Check
Hmm. You can just get the audio. Here we go. Part 4. I think that's the one we missed. A lot of just grotesque monster sounds, though. Hmm. Hmm. Nope, this is the same thing. So either I missed 5 or I've seen them all. Hmm. Let's look at the map and see if we can get a better understanding. 1, 2, 3. And then 3 here. Part 2 here. Part 1. Hmm. Well, I think I may have just done it all. So then the next step would be to find 5. 5, 5. Where is part 5? 5 is unholy captives. And it starts right there. Hmm. And see, when you just hit A, then it just skips you directly to it. There's no scanning. There's no explosion of energy. It's oddly inconsistent. Maybe it means they're still alive, but no, they're marked as being dead and potentially, potentially killed by the monsters instead. But we've seen other people killed by monsters. Okay. So they're heaving the mermaids, it seems like, on board, and the mermaids outside the water just start to grow spiky crab legs. And at the very least, this is a nice group of people. Spiked by a terrible beast. Was this guy spiked by a terrible beast? Yes, he was, but did he die from it? He's the wrong topman, apparently. And this guy is apparently not the gunner's mate, or he wasn't torn apart. This is some seaman, so we might as well just give him a name. Yeah. Just gonna have to brute force it and try any number of seaman names. Once we got rid of, if we got rid of like the more English looking people, then there is potentially more room for just applying visual stereotypes onto them. Hmm. Yeah, and apparently this guy, we've just not seen him die yet. So his part of the story seems to still play a role. And if anything else, we'll just assume he's a seaman. Henry Evans, still not confirmed to be alive. Then you have these three bodies. And this is the surgeon's mate, not the surgeon. Which, at a certain point, it might be a case that a certain number of these people are just dead because of, like, other events. Okay, and then that follows all the way down stairs to that. Am I in the right place? No, I need to go over to the other side. Am I in the right place now? Yes. Unholy Captives, Part 2 of 4. So a lot of bodies have just been thrown off the edge. Hmm. 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 So the shell is still, one of the shells is still on the person of the mermaid that seems to just be growing more and more spikes as the process goes, or just had these spikes the whole time. So it could be that the shell that the Formosan royalty had is not even the shell that was stolen that eventually cursed the ship, if we are to be if we're to assume that the ship was cursed, I suppose, but because they stole the shell, it may very well have been just spiked by a terrible beast. Is that what happens? I mean, you get this blood spout. It seems to be pouring through his face. So I don't know if he really was spiked, as maybe he was just slapped, struck by a tail. Wow. That took forever to get to that point. And so what that means is, still don't know who this guy is, and I still feel like we should probably just be guessing. What that does tell us is this guy is not in that area. And once we figure out if this guy is alive in some area, then we have two freebies that we can sit on to toggle when we're uncertain about things. You probably wouldn't want to toggle them both on at the same time, because these two females are almost certainly alive in the exact same place he is. And then we're looking for completed guesses. This guy is clearly not the gunner's mate. So, unless he's a first mate steward, which makes it, he's too old for that. Maybe he's a bosun. We'll try that. We're still really not getting a lot of success as far as figuring out who the bosun is. Like, this guy's wrong. This guy is a different seaman. Also, I'm pretty much guessing that these people fell overboard. So there's something like that. That also is coming into play. And if it's clipped like a piece of paper, then that means we know it's a guess, not an accurate guess. We kind of have to remember that. Like, this guy's kind of useless to be labeled that way, so I'm gonna move him to an unknown seaman. And that potentially is going to open up other areas. And other opportunities. I think this almost certainly is an unknown seaman. Also, we are going to pretty much be left with just seamen. The top men actually is probably pretty easy if I just went and looked at the entire list. Let's see. This is a midshipman of some sort, so I'll just give that to. I'm fairly certain that's a midshipman. And that's not a bosun's mate. Is he maybe the gunner's mate? Are there any other mates? He kind of looks more like a steward. Yeah, this is really just half brute force and half it's like half brute force and then half retracing your steps and just watching the events a second time through to get better understanding. There definitely was a point there where your guesses were definitely going to be wrong, as far as because this guy in particular has been like, that guy in particular is framed, so it looks like he murdered somebody when he didn't. This has got to be a midshipman of some sort, so it is just easy to label that. Let's see. See, and you have Waylay here as a top man, and Lewis Walker as a top man. And I feel like these guys probably either fell overboard or were electrocuted. It's like, who is Waylay? We don't know. So we are going to have to come and actually find out that solution first. And that's one of the points where this falls apart, is that, like, you would have to identify the person first before you could label them, whereas a real insurance adjuster really wouldn't have that problem. And yeah, maybe he's a midshipman. No, he's a seaman, so that's probably a seaman, which probably means that's a seaman, and we know he's a seaman too. So this would just be so much easier to just name every single character the same name. Right, so the fourth mate steward, that's the third mate. And then this is the third mate steward. So if it's two of them being side by side, that might explain some things. Because I don't know how he died. Let's see. He's in 6 memories. And at a certain point, I guess I should just bookmark some memories and try to use that system. Otherwise, we're not going to really be able to move much forward. This is either a right guess or a wrong guess. I'm not sure who that guy is. You kind of have to have more familiarity than is realistic for an average person with naval procedures. This can't be the first mate steward. He might be the ship steward. Might be the fourth mate steward. It might be the bosun's mate. Then this guy is the captain steward. And apparently he ran in this direction, and then we maybe never even found a body for him, so there might be something more to investigate with that guy. Meanwhile, we have this guy. And I mean, he's moving cargo, so I think he's a seaman of some sort. Either that or he's a midshipman. I might be fairly backwards on what midshipmen's look like versus stewards. Hmm. Hmm. Know who that is. Know who that is. We of course know who that is. Is there anybody up in the rafters? We know him. There's no point in naming him. Again, we should just probably name. But if we name every seaman the same name, then we have to name every person that we think is potentially a that is potentially midshipman the same name, and to kind of have an extra person. This might be a top man. Do we have any topmans? This is clearly the wrong person also. This guy's not the bosun. Instead, we have the surgeon. And who would be the guy working with the surgeon? Unless I've got the wrong name, the wrong person labeled as the surgeon. Like I have him between either bosun, bosun's mate, gunner's mate, or pursuer, or helmsman. Guess maybe it could be helmsman. Know that person. Let's run over here and zoom on this guy. And I am having a hard time zooming in on him. Still don't know who that is. Although we're almost certain he's a seaman. Already looked at that guy. In a weird way, this guy seems to get second billing as a character, but he seems to have been dragged into being involved in the story a lot more than a lot of the other characters who seem to just kind of die fairly quickly and they didn't really play a big role. Which I guess the game has to kind of work that way. Alright, we're going a little long here, but I just want to see if this is where the guy got slapped by the tail, and we confirmed that that was right. Then this guy was running this general direction. because he couldn't have been running this direction. Also, we should look at the map. Let's see, we are Soldiers of Sea Part 5. Bitter Cold Part 2. Soldiers of Sea, no. I don't think we're even at Soldiers of Sea. I think not at Escape. We were Unholy Captives Part 2. The next one we want is Part 3, which is one step down. So the guy was running in this general direction, and either he ended up dead over here or dead over here. Although these all events in these images could have happened months later. But we do want to follow that guy. Certainly we want to figure out where his next step would be. There we go. And so that's where the story can continue. We are slowly, ever so slowly, through a lot of brute force, getting all the answers. Doing far less logical deduction than I feel like I would like. This kind of reminds me of my experience with playing the game The Witness, where that was a game that had very flat puzzles, and those flat puzzles felt like you probably could brute force them, but in actuality, I don't think you ever actually would want to waste the time trying to brute force them. Even if you did solve one puzzle, they're so iterative. If you didn't understand the core concept as to why that one puzzle was solved, you wouldn't really make any progress and be able to solve the next puzzle. In this game, if I can just brute force something, it eliminates people, which then just by deduction allows me to guess more people and continue down the path of brute forcing. Where if I was to just swear to not brute force at all, I would probably add 10 hours of gameplay that wouldn't be very enjoyable to this experience, and I would have to just watch all the videos over and over and over again. And even the game itself told me that sometimes you're just going to have to use deductive reasoning, and brute forcing is a form of deductive reasoning. It is just probably the least efficient form, in which you're just going to try every option. It would be possibly better for the game to not allow you to guess so fast. Perhaps if it said you can only make a certain number of changes, say 10 changes to a book before you go and watch another scene, and at that point it needs to like recharge its batteries or recharge a timer. Something like that would then try to push you back into playing the game, which most of playing this game is just watching the scenes, and the vast majority of this experience is happening inside of your own head and not actually on the screen. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and give me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.